So why don't you just introduce yourself and
Abrahm DiMarco, owner of DiMarco Consulting Group. I help people step up and lead. I do a lot of work with various people and groups and organizations to help them become better leaders and build stronger teams.
awesome. And I know that you've just launched this new kind of interview prep package with your business. So tell us a little bit about how that works with job seekers that you're going to be working with.
The idea is that anytime you go through a interview of any type, somebody at some point is going to ask you, "Tell me about yourself." It's one of those dreaded questions that what are we going to tell me about yourself? Well, it's a very difficult question. How well do we know ourselves? And even if we know ourselves, do we have the vocabulary that we need to really explain that to somebody else? And so the whole idea of this interview prep is to get ready for really that question or those types of questions that you know are coming.
I know. I always dread that question because I think, am I going to sound self-centered? Am I going to sound capable? There's so many different things I could talk about. So I know that right now we're in this really weird new kind of economy. So is the job interview still relevant now, or has it just kind of changed location?
I think it just changed the location, right? Obviously, more of them are going to be done remotely, things like Zoom or whatever. But we're not going to hire a resume. Nobody wants to look at a piece of paper and try to make a decision. We get so much more information from somebody, such a better understanding of that person when we can see them face to face, or in a situation like this. And so, employers aren't going to just look at a piece of paper and hire you. They want to see who you are. They want to interact with you in some way. And the better that interaction is, the more likely you are to be hired.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So what gave you the idea to even set something like this up?
So going through interviews myself and being asked that question and not being able to give a good answer. I think most of us give the answers like, we're a great team player, we're a hard worker. We say all of these kind of standard cliche types of things. And I could see the employers going like, that's not what I wanted to hear, right? They'd heard that same exact answer from the first 5 or 6 people they spoke to. Now they're getting it one more time. Employers are trying to find the right person. They're trying to differentiate between one person and the next. And if they keep hearing the same things over and over and over, you don't stand out. Why would they hire you if you give them the same answer everybody else has? And so as I struggled through this process myself, trying to figure out how do I answer that question in a meaningful way, I realized I wasn't the only one struggling with that.
Right. And I think too, in your work as, a team building leadership consultant, I think the other part too is that even if someone looks perfect on paper, that part of what you're hiring them for is how they're going to work with the other people that are on your team, right? And how they fit in with that whole thing.
Sure. I know, and I did this myself. I spent a lot of time in interviews trying to explain that I was qualified for the job. Mm-hmm. Well, I was probably qualified for the job or they would never have called me, right? I mean, your resume will get you that interview. If you're not qualified, you won't be there. That's not why we interview people. We interview people to see if they're going to fit into our team. Right? We're trying to figure out who this person is and are they going to fit in the position and with the team that I have. I know they're qualified. I have all that stuff on that piece of paper. I have it all. So why talk about that? They know where you went to school. They know what classes you took. They know what your prior work experience is before you walk in the door. Mm-hmm. Right? They're trying to figure out who you are and are you going to fit. And giving them the same stock answer over and over doesn't help them make that decision.
So part of your approach includes this sort of interview prep and kind of looking over someone's LinkedIn profile. But the other part is this taking a strengths finder assessment and using the results from that. So you can see where that would help with that interview of how a person would fit into a corporate culture or a team structure or something like that.
You can't describe yourself until you know who you are. And the Strengths Finder survey is a very useful tool. I've used it many times. It's a It's a very well researched, very respected tool in the industry. And you take a survey and it tells you what you're good at. There's 34 different strengths and it gives you your top 5.
Oh, wow.
And it is it's uncannily accurate. Every time I give this, somebody says, "No, I can't believe, that that knows this about me." That is exactly who I am, or in so many aspects. And what the great thing about it is, you now not only learned about yourself, it brought things out that you probably knew but had never really thought about, but it also gives you the vocabulary to talk about it, right? I now have some way to explain who I am to somebody else in a meaningful manner, and so which is a very useful thing in an interview type of situation.
Right. And now you've been doing this for a little bit now, and so you've taken several people through this whole process. So what have you learned so far in doing this with the first few people that have gone through it?
We don't think about ourselves very much. We don't really take the time to sit down and think about, what am I really good at, right? What makes me different than the next person? What makes me, what are my strengths? And though we probably have an idea, we can't verbalize it. We can't describe it in any way. And many times when people go through the Strengths Finder, they read something and they say, "Oh, yeah, that is me. That does make me different." I never thought about it, but none of my friends do this quite the same way, or all my friends always call me when they have a question about this. Now I understand why. And so seeing that light bulb come on and saying, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense." And then we talk about it and say, okay, so with that knowledge, then what words can you use? What's the vocabulary you can use to describe yourself in a more meaningful way?
Right. And you're kind of attacking this, job search from a few angles, right? So you have you're going to do the internal work of
Right.
figuring out your strengths.
Yep.
You're going to go through a mock interview with somebody who's not a teacher or a parent or something like that, but somebody like you who is objective and does this kind of thing for a living and can give useful feedback. And then you're also going to help people kind of position themselves online as well, so that kind of everything is working together and you're kind of presenting a really consistent package.
Yeah, and
really chart that
sure.
consistency.
Yeah, the mock interview is a lot of fun because it gives you that chance to go through this and answer this question 2 or 3 times and saying, "Wow, that didn't sound very good," or that sounded a whole lot better, or these words describe me better, and now all I have to do is figure out how to use those words in some kind of manner. I did this, with several people, and being able to say, okay, now think about yourself in this job. I did it with somebody who's about to become a teacher. What's your classroom like? When I walk into your classroom, how are you going to set up? What should I expect to see in your classroom versus the classroom next door? And she hadn't really thought through that, right? She was, and she's a very organized person. She's a person that believes in structure and process. And she was able to, once she had taken the Strengths Finder and we talked about that, she realized that how she envisions running her classroom is a big part of who she is, right? And this idea that she needs that discipline and that structure and that process, as opposed to kind of a free-flowing, chaotic environment. So with that knowledge, she was able to use those words to better describe the kind of teacher she was going to be.
And that's really interesting because you can, Google search the top 10 job interview questions or something like that, but it doesn't actually prepare you for those kind of curveball questions in the way you're helping the people you're working with sort of prepare mentally for understanding themselves enough to be able to answer a sort of curveball question about a classroom.
And sure, and like I said, that's not really a curveball question, because I want to know if you're going to fit into my team. I know you're qualified. I know you have a degree. You're qualified to do the work, but we all do it differently. And I think it's also not only a benefit in the interview process to help explain yourself to the employer, in the sense that helps differentiate yourself. But you don't want to end up in a job where you don't fit, right? So it's
Yeah.
also this idea of it's not just getting a job; it's getting a job where you're going to enjoy yourself. And every office is different, every business is different, and so you want to portray yourself accurately to make sure you end up in the right spot.
Right. Yeah. And this idea that you're interviewing your employer as well and trying to figure out if it's a company, it's a two-way process. And I think
Sure.
we forget that a lot. And it's so funny when you were saying a minute ago, like, let's try answer this question a few different times. I think about in the office when Pam would answer the phone and she'd wait to transfer it to Michael, so he would say his first thing.
Right.
He'd say, okay, Michael, I'm transferring you now. And she'd say, like, I like to let him get the first one kind of out there.
Oh, right.
I think you letting people get their first two or three out there probably makes them a lot better interview candidate than they would have been otherwise, for sure.
And the other thing that I've seen is by the second, third time through the same question, you see they start to relax. This isn't so scary. I've had, the first time you encounter any situation is, the stress level goes up. By the third time you go through that same situation, you're much more relaxed. The first time you have a flat tire, it's pretty scary. The third time you have a flat tire, you've done it, right? I can handle this. Same thing with these questions. The first time it's like, oh, what do I say? And by the time you practice it a few times, you're able to take a deep breath and relax and present yourself in a much better manner.
I think that kind of stuff is really valuable. In particular, I think a lot of people probably haven't ever had a virtual job interview before, but now they're going to be having these opportunities a little bit more often. So getting that practice in, because that tech is an extra layer of things, and having a chance to try a Zoom job interview, I think would probably be pretty valuable in just about any industry someone was trying to get into.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not only from the COVID portion of everything, but also just as the technology gets better, it's a whole lot easier and cheaper to do this than it is to fly somebody across the country to do an interview. There's no secret that most companies are trying to find ways to save money, and this is an easy way to do it. I don't have to take my candidates and pay X number of dollars to move them around and to get them here. Not only once the COVID subsides, I think you're still going to see a lot of this because the technology is there now to be able to do it.
Yeah, and so I think you're offering people a really great opportunity here. So I guess my final kind of question would be, who's the right person for this kind of program?
I really think it's anybody that is going to be going through an interview process of some type. We all can stand to learn more about ourselves. We're going to have this question. I don't care who you are or what stage of your career you're in. If you go through an interview, they're trying to figure out who you are. Yeah. And I think that we all struggle with that. I've worked with this tool from everybody from middle school kids through people that have been in the industry for many years, and everybody learns something from it. And so by doing that, it just prepares you for the questions you're going to get. All those technical stuff, most people have that. We're pretty good at the technical stuff. We can answer whatever technical questions they're going to throw at us. The ones that make everybody nervous is those personal questions.
Yeah.
Right? No. If you tell me about yourself or what kind of a person, or give me this, you're in this leadership position, here, how are you going to handle this situation? Those are the questions that we struggle with the most, and frankly, are most important and most interesting to the person doing the interview. Because like I said, they're trying to learn who you are personally. They know your paperwork, they have that already, but who are you as a person? And are you going to fit in our team and fit in our culture?
For those, I guess, wanting to learn a little bit more about this, you can go to DiMarco Consulting Group's website, which we'll put in the caption of this video. And I think you're letting people kind of have an exploratory sort of call with you if they're thinking about doing this process,
sure.
Which you can book right on that interview prep package page. So it's not an obligation. It's just a time for you to talk to Abrahm one-on-one and see if this is a good fit. So Abrahm, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate it.